All right, great. Welcome to Foshty Conversation.
Thank you, thank you.
I'm Zaya Felix, also known as Ezomai Abi. And I have today Kingsley Okafor,
Also
aka
known as,
also known as Rukus.
also known as
Ruck.
Ruck.
Or
Yes,
Rukus.
yes.
We just
No,
talked
no,
about
no,
it
no, no,
Rukus
no, no,
thing.
no, no. We're not gonna do Rukus.
Rukus. Okay.
A lot of Nigerians have unfortunately butchered the pronunciation of my name.
Yeah.
Ruckus was the original intent, but I see a lot of people on the street and they be like, Rukus, you're my guy.
On the streets here.
On the streets here,
the
in
US.
Nigeria is really bad. But
Okay.
here it's like 50-50. Like some people call me Rukus and then other people.
Okay.
Ruckus.
Well, we have a music.
Oh, I like that. That's one of my favorite songs. I like
This
that.
is one of my current favorites right
Okay.
now as well. We will get into music later.
Okay.
But so curious because you mentioned Rukus Ruckus. Where did the name come from? What was the original intent?
Ooh, okay. So that goes back to maybe junior year in high school. I was a really quiet kid, but I liked music. I liked rapping, but I'd gone to a new school. Nobody really knew me, but they would have on the bus. They would have like these little kind of ciphers where everybody would be rapping.
Where'd you go to school?
I went to school in San Antonio.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Nobody probably knows the school I went to.
But I just wanted to, when you say cipher, I'm like, wow, high school. That's
yeah. We were doing that back in high school, and
Yeah.
so the cool kids on the bus were doing the thing, and I think they kind of jokingly like passed me the mic, like thinking like, oh, this quiet kid, he's not gonna say anything.
Right. He'll.
And then I busted out like with a couple of lines. They were like, whoa.
Where's
And
this
then
from?
one of the kids was like, yo, that dude is crazy. He never talks, but he brought the ruckus.
Oh.
And so I like that. I'd never really heard the word. I was like, oh, I kind of like that. That could be my name. And so
that's stuck since high school.
That's stuck since high school.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Okay, so from high school, the discovery of Ruckus, I presume that's when you kind of went public with yourself as
Oh, no, I didn't go public
okay.
at all.
Well, at least people, that's when I say public, that someone now knows that you rap.
Yes.
Like you actually do this.
A
And
couple
you
people
like
knew
doing
that I
it.
rapped. Yeah.
So, and that's not, I mean, of course, I do know that that's part of your background, but how did you go from there to where you are now, where I think a lot more people know that you rap? And at some point you mentioned you actually went back to Nigeria to
I actually I got signed to a record deal in 2012, and so I lived in Nigeria for about a year and a half, almost 2 years. Moved back to Houston in 2014. So kind of the genesis of all of that was I started rapping in high school, just kind of messing around with it. I didn't think anything of it, and really I just liked freestyling. I liked that aspect of it. I thought that was kind of cool, and then I liked kind of taking songs that I heard and beats that I heard and like, oh, what if this was me? Like, what would I
like
do
flipping
on it?
it?
Yeah, flipping it.
Right.
Exactly. And so I just thought it was a fun thing to do. Now, I was the least artistic person in my family. Like, my sister is like classically trained in the violin.
Oh, wow.
She can play by ear. She's amazing. And my brother was a really accomplished like painter and very artistic, graphic design, all of that.
Okay.
But I didn't know I had any kind of musical talent. Didn't think I did, so I didn't really mess with anything. So in college, one time, my sister was kind of messing around with playing hip hop by ear on the violin, and so I just kind of walked in on her doing that, and then I started kind of freestyling to what she was doing, and she thought it was really cool. So we messed around with it a few times, and then one day she had a show. We both went to the same university. We went to Texas A&M University, College Station.
Okay.
Yeah. So she had a show, and she was like, "Hey, you should do that thing that we do, where I play the violin, I play hip hop on the violin, and you just rap over it." And I'm like, no, thank you.
So
Never been on a stage.
What is that show? Okay, so
like a proper show. And then she's like,
right,
no. It's not even like that. It's going to be like 15, 20 people. Totally like almost like a friends and family feel. It'll just be a fun thing. Very small
thing. Feel nervous about.
2 minutes.
Issues.
And she kept like kind of poking me. I was like, you know what? 15, 20 people. I'll be nervous, but I'll survive, right?
You'll be okay.
So we go to do the show. It's like 200 people. And yeah, But when I got on the stage, it was such a like crazy feeling. I didn't feel nervous at all, and everything just kind of flowed, and that's where everything really started from.
Okay, that sounds really interesting. So 2 questions I have just based on that. What does your sister, is she still into music?
No, I mean she still loves music, right, and she still knows how to play the violin, but it's almost like she was ahead of her time a little bit. Yeah. So nobody was really, she was playing hip hop on the violin. Nobody else was doing that, but nobody knew what to do with that. Right. You know, maybe like a couple of years, 2 or 3 years after she started, there's a really popular violinist, Miri Benari, and she kind of like took that platform and took it to another level. So yeah, but sis still, you know, she can still get down with it a little bit, but it's not her focus anymore. Okay, so now multiple thoughts. Have you heard of the Hidden Beach recordings? Hidden Beach recordings. Beach. I'm thinking of when I was in maybe college. There used to be this series of recordings where they would have classical music, but rap version. Oh no! I just thought about it now because I was like, being ahead of the time, that was something that was super cool. Back in high school, I really used to enjoy those. Like it'd just be kind of classical versions of old hip hop, new hip hop, but that's besides the point. I asked about your sister still doing music because, as you know, Foshty, we kind of reference the idea of the African immigrants and what we do here, and sort of the balance of old culture and new culture. So I was curious how your parents feel if she was still doing music, and really how they feel about you doing music the way you do now. So here's the background, right? So the background is I'm the youngest of 4. Okay. So the benefit of that is, you know, by the time you get to the 4th, I think the parents they're just kind of like, look, man, we're done, whatever, whatever you want to do. Now they were not for me. They supported my sister doing music because it was something to do. It was extracurricular. Okay. It was a skill. It was a talent. She got some scholarship off of that. Like there were awards and accolades, and you know, immigrants love good with awards. Love that. Yeah. But was it? And it never once in their mind, and maybe even in her mind, interfered with the career path. Okay. So for her, it was always like, okay, you're either gonna become a doctor or get your PhD or something like that. The violining kind of fit into that. It didn't. It was like this classy kind of thing. It never. It made her more rounded. If anything else, that was actually okay. And that's as long as that's not something she was thinking of going to as a profession, as a career. Exactly. Okay. With me, the conflict. There were a couple of conflicts when college came around. So I was more of a computer guy. That was my thing. Like I taught myself how to program when I was like 9 or 10 years old. Wow, that's pretty. And I won a lot of awards in high school and scholarships for that. Okay. So when I went into college, my parents were like, "Oh, computer scientist, he's good. You're he's flying. Good to go. He is in the engineering kind of track." You know, but once I had spent a year or 2 in college and I was meeting all these different people, I had professors who were like, you know what, you're really good at writing. Like, have you thought about moving out of this whole computer thing that you're doing in this engineering space and like moving into anything else? So I didn't really tell my parents that, but every professor I had would tell me that. They'd be like, you know, have you thought of double majoring or maybe just switching it? And I'm like, no, I don't know. Because I'd always hated writing growing up, or not even hated it. I loved math and I loved engineering so much that writing was just a distraction. Like I just wanted to be in front of computers. So it's almost like a conflict of your brain, the size of your brain or something. Yes. Yeah. So that's it to immigrant parents. Mm-hmm. Whatever you are at like age 13, that's what you are for life. Yeah. So they ask you what you want to do when you grow up, and then that's it. Yeah. It gets locked in, and you never are supposed to do anything else. Exactly. That's the decision. So my parents, in their mind, I was this kind of math computer wizard who doesn't like writing, and that's our son, and he'll make money later on. Right. Like he'll be good. You make money in the computer part. That's it. So what ended up happening is my sister graduated like my freshman year of college, and so I stopped doing shows and stuff. I stopped rapping, but then I still felt the need for expression, so I switched over to like writing poetry. Okay. And I would just go, like somebody was like, hey, you should go to like this coffee shop. They have this open mic. Just go and read. Your poems are pretty good. Go and read. So I just like printed out my poem and then I just went and sat on the stool and I read it and like people went nuts. So I started doing that often, and then people would be like, "Hey, can you bring copies?" So I started bringing copies to give to people because maybe they would want to have it, or maybe they'd want to give it to somebody they cared about, depending on what the topics were.
Yeah.
Well, somebody actually collected every one of the poems that I would read. And they actually, because they worked at a literary journal, unbeknownst to me.
Oh,
and so they submitted it to their editor. And then next thing you know, I get a call that I should come into this literary journal.
How old were you?
This time I'm probably like 19.
Okay.
19, 20. Right. So I'm like, wow, okay, great. And so I talked to this guy and he puts me in this program with all of these seasoned writers, people who have published books, people who have been on bestseller lists, all of that. And it's this writer's workshop where like the top 10 Black writers in the nation get invited. And
so this was during college.
This was during my junior year in college. So this is like summer.
Right.
So I like.
And you're on the computer track.
I'm on the computer track still. Okay. Yeah.
All right. Just trying to get my head around it.
So now my mind starts opening up to all these other possibilities. I'm around these other artists. I don't cut my hair for a while. Like my hair starts growing out. I get full artist mode. Right. And then I'm like, what am I doing? I'm going to become an English major. And my parents were like, what?
Yeah. Even I'm like,
my mom laughed.
Junior year. Like what?
My mom laughed and was like, no, you're not. No, right. You don't write. You do math.
You hate writing.
You hate writing. You do math. And I'm like, no, but like things have changed. And I start trying to explain to them what's happened. They're not trying to hear any of it. What I guess kind of let them go with the flow is that I started taking some creative writing courses. And my professors were loving me, and I ended up submitting into this competition. Okay. And I ended up getting a scholarship. And then once I got a scholarship, I had money.
Yeah, then it makes sense. So you essentially changed your major?
So I changed my major.
In junior year?
In my actually, that was the beginning of my senior year now, is when I made the switch.
Okay.
So I changed my...
that's okay. I imagine it's awesome that your parents did not give you like the only...
Oh, no, it's not. What? No, they stopped talking to me now.
Okay, because I mean,
Pop stopped talking to me for a while. Mom was upset. But I'm finishing out doing this, so I had to take a lot more coursework. Right. But it starts going well, and then at the same time, I start rapping again. And this time, I'm like, let me do a mixtape and stuff, and I start like getting a little following and all of that. So that's where everything started.
Where it started. Okay, that's an impressive background. At least just having. A lot of times we get stuck in what we're assigned, right?
Yeah.
Someone tells you you're supposed to be an engineer, doctor, computer, whatever it is. And we all stick it through, even if you realize at some point that that's not what you want.
Yes.
So it's interesting and impressive to say, you know what, I don't feel like doing this, and change in your junior going on senior year, which most people will be like, oh my God, that's crazy. Just finish what you've already started. For grad school, you can go and then figure it out. So do you sometimes regret that decision?
Absolutely not.
Yeah, you're settled with that?
I'm very settled with it because I'm practical. So the thought of finishing out under the computer science track made sense in some ways, but I also knew where the industry was headed, that it's less about degrees and more about knowledge.
Right.
And I felt comfortable with my knowledge base and my expertise in certain things. And so I never felt like, a lot of times studying computer science in a university, they're so behind.
So it delays the process.
It delays. Back then we're using textbooks. Right. It's a lot of theory.
Yeah.
Like computer languages and development, software development is constantly evolving. So by the time you get your textbook and you're on chapter 5, something else is hot and it's different. Has changed already.
That's pretty cool. So, and you are kind of into computer work now, like as your day job.
I got back into, even when I got out of college, I ended up veering back into back into the technology space. And so now my job is kind of a hybrid of some of those skills, but a lot of my job utilizes my writing skills, utilizes verbal skills and speaking. So
interesting.
The balance ended up being something that aided me,
Okay. That's cool. So now we're going to touch base a little bit on you going to Nigeria.
Okay.
I mean, we'll talk about music and transition and all that stuff. But you deciding to go to Nigeria, signed with a label and everything.
Yes.
When did that happen?
Mm-hmm.
Why did you come back?
Okay.
And where are we now?
Okay.
And I'm asking about where are we now because I met you fairly recently,
Yeah.
and it was I was like, okay, this is someone that's still actively rapping and doing things in this music space, but you're here. So it's always interesting to say, okay, how does that work? Because I mean, most of your audience, are they Nigerian? Are they here? So just a little bit of that mix of going over there, coming back here, still trying to do it, and tell me more.
Let me try and condense.
If you can condense all those years
as much of it as possible. Okay, so I had been rapping for a while in Houston, doing it on the side. Of course, I was working a 9-to-5 job, and I was rising pretty quickly at the company that I was at. But I was gigging on the side because I just I love music and I love rap. Now, what ended up happening was around 2000, it was 2011. There was a contest, and everybody wanted to see. A lot of people wanted to see me win because a lot of people were like, "Oh, you're really talented," or they like the music or whatever. And so a guy hit me up, Ike Orizu. He hit me up and he was like, "Hey, Don Jazzy," and I think at the time it was Mo Hits Mo Hits. Yeah. So Don Jazzy is putting together a contest, and it's who can do like the best song with this instrumental that he has. And I was like, I've been rapping for a while. I'm like, I don't do contests. Like I'm good. And he was like, Ruck, please just do this one. Man, Don Jazzy, he might sign you. And I'm like, okay, like. And he was like, just fine, don't do it for that, just do it for me. Okay. Just do it for me. Okay. And I was like, okay. So
that must be a really good friend.
Yeah, so I mean we were cool at the time. So I was like, okay, I got you. I'll whip something together. Yeah. And in my mind I was like, man, I'm not even gonna put full effort into it. I'll just throw something together. Anyway, so I completely forget about it. And then one of my homeboys was like hitting me up to go to the club at that time. And I'm like, okay, yeah, let's head out. So he comes to my house, and then I see them. I'm scrolling through my phone because I'm looking for something, and then I see that message where the dude is like, just do it for me. And I'm like, oh my God. And so I tell my mom, I'm like, yo, give me 10 minutes tops. And he's like, what's happening? I'm like, I got to do this thing before we go. Okay. I promised somebody I would do something. He's like, all right. So I whipped together some lyrics. In 10 minutes, okay. Probably less than 10 minutes, and then record one take, convert it to an MP3, and then I didn't even read the rules. I just uploaded it to Twitter and sent it to him, like tagged him and was like, yo, that thing that you asked for, here it is. And then I went on my way. So this was 2011. This is 2011. Okay. So we're on our way to this club. I don't even think it's open now. This place called Crystal Lounge at the time. And my phone starts like vibrating. And I'm like, I'm driving, so I'm like, I'm not going to check it. But it keeps vibrating. So then I'm like, what's wrong? And it's like nonstop. Like it's just shaking. And I don't see any missed calls. So I'm like, what's happening? So I put it back down, and it's just fine. I'm like, man, as soon as I get to this club, I'm going to check it out. So we get to the club. I look, and I still can't see what's going on. And then I see it's Twitter, and I've got like 500 notifications. I'm like, wow. What the hell happened? Right. What did I do? So it turns out that, I had tagged the dude, Ike. Ike then CC'd Don Jazzy with his Twitter handle. Wow. So Don Jazzy now actually responds and is like, this is pretty cool. And then a bunch of people start retweeting and responding. And then he goes, man, actually, this is really, really good. And then he starts like quoting different lines throughout the song, what I recorded. So now people go nuts. I pick up like 1,000 followers in like 10 minutes. And then I get an email from the owners of this blog, this popular Nigerian blog called Not Just Okay. Oh, okay. So they email me and they're like, hey, Don Jazzy reached out to us. He wants more of your music. He's interested in signing you. And that's where everything started from. So once he was interested, then a bunch of other labels became interested. Then people started inviting me to do all these shows out of state. And then I end up going that December of 2011. I go to Nigeria, and another guy that had reached out to me a while back was a big kind of a legendary artist named LD.
Oh yeah, I remember.
So LD the Don.
Yeah.
So LD, reaches out to me when I'm in Nigeria and is like,
original guy.
Yeah, the original guy, Tribesman was the group that he was in. So he reaches out to me and he's like, yo, let's link up in the studio. So I go with my friend, we're in Lagos, so we go to some apartment complex and they got this studio set up or whatever, and everybody's in there. Like Scales is in there, WizKid is in there. This is before WizKid is big, but he's not like what he is right now.
Right. I mean, 2011. It's Nigerian music has just gone.
Nigeria, it has just started to blow.
Right.
Yeah.
I think 08, 09, 10
is when it really.
Right. That's when things started sort of bubbling
up.
Now
and then 2011 is when it blew.
Yeah.
So now that's why everybody was like, yo, you got to go back to Nigeria. Go back to Nigeria.
This is the time to catch the wave.
So WizKid is recording these tracks, and then who's there? Basket Mouth was there. And so I meet Basket Mouth, and Basket Mouth got jokes, and he's like clowning me, and he's and LD tells him, he's like, yo, this is my dude Rukus, and he's a rapper. And so Basket Mouth was like, yo, he looks like a gospel singer or something. And so everybody's laughing, and then LD's like, yo, Ruck, spit something.
Yeah.
So I'm like, do you have a beat? And I'm like, yo, whatever WizKid was just recording, I'll put that back on. So he puts that back on, I rap over it. It gets quiet. Then Basket Mouth is like, who are you signed to? He was like, LD, if you don't sign this guy, I will create a record label and sign this guy today. Right. And so, start gassing me up or whatever. So I end up on the song with WizKid and LD and Basket Mouth. And then Basket Mouth pulls me aside and it's like, hey, I'll fly you in to come back here. I'm doing a show in the summer of 2012. I'll fly you back in to perform this song and do some of your own stuff. And then LD offered me a record deal that night. So everything just kind of happened that night. We negotiate, and we end up sealing the deal in like May of. I went back to Nigeria in May for the Basket Mouth performance, and so I did that. And then we finalized the deal then, and then I moved out there in June of 2012. Yeah.
Okay. So naturally, I would have to say, when did you come back?
So I came back to the States in late 2013.
Okay, so
and I came back on tour.
Year? Okay.
Yeah, I came back on tour. So I was there for a little over a year. Okay. But we were doing a North American tour. So we hit up the usual Chicago, Houston, Dallas. Really the main reason I come is, they had wanted me to do to perform in Houston because I built up a lot of traction before I'd left. Okay. So they knew that there would be some kind of crowd. So did the Houston show, did the Chicago show, Maryland. Then we did a big festival with Childish Gambino in Canada. And after that, there were things that were going on. So this leads to your other question, which is why did you come back?
Right. Well.
Well, I will say Nigeria happened.
Nigeria happened. And understandable, even without the details.
Yeah,
I can understand what that means.
To put it quite simply, it's hard to sustain businesses in Nigeria because of the environment, but B, primarily because of corruption and just individuals being corrupt. Right. So someone at the very top of the food chain was embezzling a lot of money from the record label, and so the record label had so many talented artists, some of whom are even still huge right now. So we had SARS, who a lot of people are familiar with SARS. SARS is he's amazing. Yeah. We had an artist called K9 who had a smash hit called Kokoma at the time. Oh yeah.
I actually love that
song. Is amazing. I
had a little dance in the supermarket.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. We filmed that. I filmed some of that. Yeah.
At some point, that was really Nigerian music is a whole other thing. Yeah.
So big song. So we have another artist, Aramide, who she still does her thing with. I think she's with Baseline Records. We had another amazing singer, Sojay, who he still does amazing. Really? Sounds like Mario. He's amazing. Yeah. And we had one or two other people. So bottom line is we had the talent, but due to the embezzling, now you don't have the money to shoot videos. Now you don't have the necessarily money to do your the distribution and all of that. Artists start walking, they're not eating, they're not getting what they were contractually promised, and it just turned into a situation where it wasn't sustainable anymore. So
well, I mean, that's understandable. So you're still doing your stuff,
absolutely,
here, just not not in Nigeria.
Yeah.
But which brings me to the growth of Nigerian music. The transition of Nigerian music, because now you see a lot of sort of cross promotion. Fusions. It's very interesting. I feel like every month there's a new song with a bunch of new artists, and you're thinking, okay, interesting, this is cool. What are your thoughts on that? Like, what's your take on that transition? And if you were to make any predictions about where we're going in that sense, what would you say? Like, are we on a track for a new thing where it becomes a like a fusion, cross-pollination, whatever you want to call it, or is this just a phase? Is this just a nice little trend for now? You're not
I'm not, but I never had a doubt that Nigerian music would blow.
Yeah.
I think there's, how do I put this? I will say that there are things there's two tracks that could possibly happen. The first, we're on a track right now where I think that the easiest comparison to make Afrobeats to is where reggae was in the 80s, which is to say that you had this kind of culture that was brewing in this other place, and that was fun, and that was lively, and that made you want to dance, or that made you want to just had a different energy from what existed in the U.S.
Yeah.
And typically what happens whenever there's this new genre that kind of comes into the consciousness in the United States is record labels immediately start to pick out, well, who are the top 5 artists?
They want to jump on it,
and they start pulling those artists in because those artists represent what is authentic about the genre. So they pull those artists in and they start plugging them in with their American artists to now create the fusion in the sound. So they'll get Nigerian producers, or they'll get American producers to produce like Nigerian producers. But typically they'll start with a couple of Nigerian producers, bring them in, and then let the American producers start to kind of get familiar with that sound.
Get a taste of the sound, and then figure out how to replicate it.
Now all of a sudden they can replicate it, right? Then they get these top 5 artists that they think are authentic, and they start featuring them on everything.
And stuff.
But then, and this is kind of the crossroads where we're at.
Yeah.
The next step that typically happens is you start getting the fusion of this genre into pop.
Yeah. Okay.
And it starts getting diluted, starts getting watered down, and then maybe now you don't necessarily need those top 3 or 4 artists. Yeah. Maybe now you just have that soundscape and you do your own thing over it.
Yeah.
And maybe now you don't bring in all of these other artists who are kind of transforming that sound. You just kind of stick with some of the original bass elements that you got.
Yeah.
And I think that's the crossroads that Afrobeats is at right now is, are you going to maintain ownership? Are you going to maintain that kind of
authenticity
and ingenuity that you were bringing to your genre? Or are you going to commoditize it and sell it to the Americans, and then it's no longer yours?
So that's interesting, because I was thinking recently I heard a song with Ashanti.
Yes.
Okay, Ashanti. I forgot. I think she's with Afrobeat or something.
She is.
So that I heard that song and I thought, okay, interesting. Mm-hmm. I personally couldn't get into it, but I could see what you're talking about, because it almost felt diluted to me. It just didn't feel right. But I get it, because it's palatable to other people, more Americans, in my opinion.
Here's a question that and this is a perception thing. So Lion King, live action film just came out, right?
So that's it. Okay. So I feel like I probably want to avoid that.
Massive, whatever.
Yeah.
So then Beyonce now comes out with it's not technically a soundtrack, but with an album that's essentially linked to the film, right?
Uh-huh.
Now, she does what in one light would be viewed as a very gracious act in using her already established platform and audience to bring in, to usher in, you know, Afrobeats at this stage that it's never been really brought to before. That's one. Then two, technically she could have just used, you know, one or two artists. Maybe she could have featured a Wizkid or a David O or a Burna Boy. But she brings in a good like 10. Every track.
Everybody.
Every track. Everybody who is somebody
that's rising. The ones, the more popular. Yeah.
She brings them in and allows them to be a part of that project. So I think my question is, that's one way to perceive it. But then there are a small number of people, or not a small number, but a minority that perceive it as kind of doing what I just explained, which is taking this African product that's already on a trajectory to be extremely popular and to be extremely dominant on the world stage, getting ahead of that and kind of forcing this association and making it seem like you put that on. Maybe, so do you think that, which camp are you in, or do you think maybe it's a mix of both? Maybe it's like, I can do this, but I'm also doing this knowing what the trajectory is. So I'm trying to put people on, but I also know this thing is going to be big. So it's good for everybody.
Or even if I don't know it's going to be big, it's big now. It's big enough now, or it's at the point now where there is enough attention and I can capitalize off of it. And it's great. Like that's essentially.
Is the move and.
Her gift, right? Is it? Okay,
is it more? And I'm sorry, I'm taking over the show. I am your new host.
Which is, my name is Rukus. It's a Foshty Conversation. It's a Foshty Conversation. We're talking. You're free to ask me questions, and we're good.
So this goes to a conversation on Jay-Z and Beyonce. Is this more of a capitalist move or more of a almost philanthropic move?
Gosh, that's
and this has I ask it like that because I ask myself a lot of those questions about Jay-Z, and he's my favorite rapper.
Right. So that's the tricky thing, because for me, when we begin to talk about Jay-Z and Beyonce, now you're opening a whole different kind of worms, right? Because might be attacked by a whole different set of people.
Beehive.
Which is not where
we're not attacking anybody.
Is it I don't. Unfortunately, I think man in general is self-serving.
I would agree with that.
Self-serving. That's it. So philanthropy works because, quite honestly, you get tax credits. Like you're self-serving at the base of it, right?
Wait, Bill Gates doesn't just want to save Africa because
he can't save it and still get a nice discount from what It's a catch-22. So do I think there is some philanthropy? When you say philanthropy and African music, a part of me actually gets a little angry because it's like, we don't need your philanthropy. Like, no.
Yeah.
The music is good enough for us, right?
And
that's from me personally, because I rarely actually listen to the radio. I listen now at this phase of my life to mostly African music.
So let me play devil's advocate then on the point that you just raised.
Okay.
If those artists, those African artists that were featured on her album, if they came together, Beyonce, let's assume the album never existed, and those African artists came together and they had done a compilation album together, and they put that album out, would it see anywhere near?
No. So would it see anywhere near? No. Would it be appreciated on the same scale? And I only say appreciated because I would say in a year we can go back and say who still remembers already, right?
Yeah.
I believe it would be mostly Africans at the end of the day.
You may be onto something,
right?
But brown skin girl,
which is nice. Now people know Wizkid's name.
Yes.
But brown skin girl, which we'll get back to because of something else that you've done in the past. It hits a nerve. So that particular song is appreciated in a different way.
In a different way.
I
agree with
that song hits a nerve.
Yes.
Now, how many people would know more songs off the album beyond just that one that hits a nerve?
That's true.
That's a different question. Yeah. So, does it reach more people? Yes. Does it get more people excited that over time they actually feel engaged to the point to say, you know what, I remember that album, I love this song. You and I can talk about Wizkid. We know from, Backroom, like from the beginning to where he is now. Like we have the fever. Like we can talk about Wizkid as an artist. But Beyonce giving something is like, oh wow, nice. The stage, more people can hear about it.
It's a bigger stage.
It's a bigger stage. So now more people know about Burna Boy, which is a completely different rise of what's going on. But who will remember all of that in a few years? It would still be most of us, most Africans, most African immigrants, most African descendants will be the one that would identify with it. And you mentioned the similarities to reggae back in the day. Who really remembers?
And that's where I would go is with reggae and dance hall. Once it got kind of taken, and they were no longer the true owners of it in America at least. Then you saw it like, man, some really watered down stuff.
Versions.
And then you started seeing people where it, because the point that I was making is it starts with, okay, you love reggae, you love dancehall, so you feature Shabba Ranks.
Yeah.
You feature Elephant Man. You feature Shaggy.
You
feature Sean Paul. Then what it turns into is now you use that Jamaican style beat, but you don't feature anybody. You don't need them.
You don't need them anymore. And that's what happens. You move on.
It's become so much a part of, this is just another form of music that people are already familiar with.
Exactly.
You no longer need anybody to establish some kind of credibility.
Right.
Like, you just do it.
Right. And then that brings me to a different topic, like a different question. Who is still listening to reggae now?
Man, after that period where Sean Paul was on everything, that was the end.
Exactly. That was the end on this stage.
On this stage. Now the people who listen are in the Caribbean, of course.
Exactly. That is still their music. Like, granted, there was a time where it's like, hey, this is a nice, pretty package. Let's all look at it and enjoy it. But it's still their music.
Yeah, and then
they still have it, and it's still blowing up, and we are still enjoying it. Like,
think about the last few songs that were like kind of had that influence. What's this guy's name? Omi.
You might have to educate
Cheerleader.
You might have to educate me. Wait.
I think I found myself a cheerleader.
Okay, I remember that. It had that little underlying. Yeah.
So watered down.
Yeah.
I mean, you could go back further to what's this guy's name? Sean Kingston and.
So
it's just like it doesn't.
Yeah, but talking about reggae, I have to say, so the two things that I thought about. I think it was DeVito that came. Was it DeVito that came to the U.S.? I believe signed with someone. Did a couple of songs with like Sway Lee or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then he went back. He left and went back. There was something. I'm not so well versed in the details, but I think
there's a few artists that have been signed.
Yeah.
David O. I'm trying to remember if he was Sony or RCA.
Yeah.
And he does have a song with Sway Lee. He has a song with Chris Brown.
A couple of
artists. Yeah.
The Chris Brown is a newer song.
That's the Blow Your Mind.
Yeah, that's the newer one. But he's not. I mean, he's not here. He's not really here anymore. Is he still signed to the record label?
I think David O still has his record label deal. Now, who got out of his deal, I believe, was YC. I don't know if you're familiar with YC. Juice, exactly. Okay, just make
Nigerian music is like, no, don't do that.
So YC was in a situation where he basically signed with Sony and nothing really happened.
Really?
Like nothing really popped off. They basically took that Juice song, milked it, got money out of it, took that portion, and then that was it. That's it. They did a remix. I think he had a real random remix with Joyner Lucas. that was on it, and
really?
yeah, so random. That's a random mix,
Right.
especially
I don't
for that
even
song.
remember hearing that. Okay.
Yeah, so
That's very weird.
so YC's been on Twitter. He's complained about that deal with Sony, and of course he's even complained about his record label, Tiny Entertainment, and kind of the bind that they put him in. So a lot of these artists, man, these deals, there's so many implications. I mean, you're a lawyer. Like, there's so many implications to these contracts that get signed, and how the nuances of it, and the expectations of what artists think they're going to be getting,
what they're going to get,
and then what they're actually going to get. Like, you sign with a major label. What does that mean? What does that do for your platform? Are you signing, like, are they truly going to be putting their resources into you? Are they just going to take your song if they say and put it on a page? Yeah. And then that's called distribution. Right. So
and how much control are you giving up? I think that's something I don't know this. I'm just speaking based on impressions. I feel like I'm drawing a blank here, but recently we've had a few artists that do try to retain some control. I mean, we have a few.
They're trying to keep their masters.
Right, they try to retain some control over even just their artistry, how the music comes across, right? And I mentioned the Davido story because I did hear about that, and I think the what I picked up was he came here, tried to do something, and at some point decided that he wanted more control and authentic sound to him. And then he went back and did If and a couple of the songs that are now still one of more recent classics.
Okay.
And then I thought of Davido again because we're talking about reggae. And he has, I think he's the one that has the Risky song.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
With Popcan.
Yes.
Sort of that blend as well, where there's a reggae underlying.
I mean, there's some synergy for sure between the Caribbean music and between what we do with Afrobeats. Yeah.
And it's one of those things circling back to the original thing. We can get the gift here and get the experience of, it's on a bigger platform and someone's appreciating it and it's so great. But ultimately, it's still our music.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, over time, people will maybe not play If 30,000 times on the radio like they do now in some places. We'll still enjoy our music. So it's not, and that's, Foshty again, being from our shithole countries to you. That's one of those things I'm like, oh, great, you enjoy it now. You like something that we're bringing to the table, right? When the idea for the name of this concept came up, it was really trying to highlight the positive things that we bring here. Yeah. Not that people don't know it, but people don't really center on it or talk about it. Music is now one of those things.
Of course.
Music is one of those things where you realize
probably it's the biggest export out of the continent.
Besides our intellect. I mean, that's the biggest export because a lot of people are here and doing really incredible things, and I mean, just companies, businesses, ideas, projects, work, but most times when people talk about African immigrants, it sounds like it's a burden. Like we're not bringing much. Yeah. So it's always important for us to see the positive things on a larger scale, not just individually, but on a larger scale. Definitely, the things that we are bringing to this side of the world.
I agree.
Yeah. So I'm glad this is one of those things. So music, I have to go back. I talked to you earlier. If you could kind of give us a little thing with the Foshty, I could try to find a beat if you want a beat. But you could be like us. What's funny?
Oh my God! I'm so
serious. You said you like Joe Boy's Baby. So should we use that beat? No. You wanna pick your own thing?
Is that just the beat?
Well, let me find the beat. This is the music itself. Okay. You said this was one of your. We can pause for a second. What's one of your favorite songs right now?
Okay. This is a good one. Favorite songs right now? Not okay. And I'm assuming you're talking just You're talking Afro.
Yes. Okay. Most times on this, we are.
Interestingly, the sound has really shifted a lot in the past year and a half, and so we've gone from especially Nigerians, we've tended to love really kind of high, really up tempo type of music, and I'll get back to that because techno.
Prior to now,
techno's up tempo actually is like a breath of fresh air to me
I love that
I really love the song.
Well, I loved it until. Have you heard Skeleton?
I've heard it.
I love him.
Really?
Oh my goodness.
I don't love it.
It is so smooth.
It
like,
is smooth.
It is so. It's like a nice cool drink on a hot summer day.
Okay.
It's such a smooth song.
I think it's a smooth song, but
especially when he whispers about something and you have no idea what he's saying. But that's I mean.
I think I have higher expectations for techno when he does those mid tempo kind of chill tracks.
Yeah.
He's so good at creating a vibe.
Yeah.
And we saw that with Go, we saw that with Pana, like he's just really
he's a vibe.
He's a vibe.
Right.
And so I was actually surprised because that song didn't quite get me to the vibe that I'm used to with him. What I loved about up tempo though.
Can I just give you homework?
Okay.
So when you're driving, preferably around like 8.
Put the windows down.
Put the windows down a little bit. Play that song when you're just on the highway and just listen to it. It's I mean, and then just.
So I need to create.
You need to not create, but you just need to let it seep in at the right time.
I'm gonna give it a couple more chances.
Yeah, but techno, I love him. But
the up tempo song.
Yeah.
What I love about the up tempo song is that I feel like it's an artist, and I could be wrong, but I feel like it's an artist identifying how people are moving and saying, "Oh, let me go that way. Y'all are all going right. Let me go." So now everybody was chilling.
Yeah, it's like.
And then now he gives you this track, and if you listen to the track, that if you took techno off of it and I just heard the beat come on, I would think, this is Don Jazzy again, and you're taking me back to 2011, 2012.
Yeah, you're right.
But he kind of brought that. If you think about it, there is not a single up-tempo summer song that's just really jamming.
Dude,
we didn't have that.
You're right.
So like I would hear from people who'd be like, "Yo, there's nothing like." Yeah, we've got these songs.
Everything has kind of chilled out, and everything has kind of picked up. I almost want to say the Ghanaian vibe. Like it's Niger music used to be very hot.
Yes.
But everything has kind of chilled out recently.
Very much.
And then up tempo this summer was probably the only jam.
It's probably the only jam that was.
I never thought about it that way.
Yeah. So
interesting.
I actually like more chill music, but that song really, I was like, oh, this is nice. This is a change of pace.
Have you heard Panwa?
Which one?
Panwa is okay. I'm gonna probably Panwa is by Olamide.
If I hear it, I'll know.
It's a newer song, so I'm gonna play it just in the middle of everything, just so you can. It's a recent one that's seeped into my consciousness.
Okay.
So let's get Panwa. The beat is nice. I like the beat. It's I mean it's kind of, see, you're smiling like you I mean, it kind of brings that older vibe, right?
Yeah, and Olamide has always been very good at these kind of chanty, giving you something that you will just chant to, not very kind of mindless and just.
You just keep repeating the word. I think poem means booty. I'm not sure, but you just keep repeating it, like.
Very interesting. Yeah, very interesting.
But that's one of those newer songs. I'm like, okay, that brings a nice little beat.
Now anything Burner, like
Burner Boy.
That's
he's going through he's having a whole experience these days. Like he has blown off
consistency. Like when I was in Nigeria,
back in the day,
this was him.
This has always been him.
This has always been him.
But all of a sudden now it's like.
There's a quote that I love, and to paraphrase it, it's basically, there's a stone cutter and he's hammering away at a stone, and when it breaks, it's not that last hit that broke the stone, but it was all the hits that came before it. And with Burna Boy has been doing his thing since, like 2010, 2009. Yeah. And so I remember, he was in Port Harcourt. He was before that. He was in Port Harcourt, just grinding. Then made it to Lagos, and then from Lagos, got some traction with Tonight, got some traction. You know,
yeah,
like
he has been very consistent with his style,
yeah,
and just
his
with music,
stylistically consistent.
He really is. He's great. Something else I came across recently: the alternative movement.
Oh yeah, Alte. Yeah. I love it. I listen to Alte probably more than I listen to regular Afrobeat.
So, do you have a favorite Alte artist?
Oh man. Okay.
Favorite Alte song.
I've got a few.
A few? Okay.
Yeah.
Let's try them out.
So I love this artist named Io.
Io is nice.
He's really really dope. I also love. I mean, let me think. Who else is really? I have a whole Alte playlist.
Yeah, please share. I like Odunsi.
I like Odunsi. Odunsi is kind of the face.
Intro.
He's the face of Alte because from both the music. Don't get me wrong, the music is good.
Right.
But also from an image standpoint, he's pretty daring with his fashion choice. So people, when you think face of it, people think of Odunsi. People think of Wavy, the creator.
Yeah.
People think of trying to think who else someone would label as Alte.
Wouldn't SARS kind of fit?
Oh no.
No? Okay.
No. SARS is Afrobeat, but SARS has
a different.
He has a different spin on it.
Yeah.
He's like if you mixed Afrobeat with. I think SARS is more of the face of Nigeria's take on Afro house and Afro pop. I think he's Santi. I love Santi.
I knew there was someone else I was thinking of.
I love Santi.
Yeah. I recently, I knew of Odunsi. I recently really, really got into him. And then recently Santi as well. I'm like, you know what? I'm feeling this.
And really Santi will also give you a little bit of that Caribbean vibe as well. So I normally don't do this, but I'm gonna pull up my little playlist.
You're free to share. Yes. I still need you to spit something before we end up out here.
Going to find,
since we're searching. We're searching music. How do you feel about generally South African music? Like I love South African house music.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah. And then recently I discovered this Tanzanian guy. So once again, Foshty being African. You have Ghanaian stuff, Tanzanian stuff. Like there's just all this. There's a whole music vibe going on, and it seems like Nigeria is, of course, leading a lot of the transition.
We're loud.
We are.
We're the loudest. That's what it is. Yeah.
But there's all these other artists that people don't always know about or always hear about. So there's a whole almost like a quiet movement going on.
Lady Donnelly. Lady Donnelly.
How do I don't know?
You must add Lady Donnelly to your playlist for sure. Lady Donnelly is one of my favorites.
I am all for new music, so let's see.
So I got Santi in here. I got Lady Donnelly in here.
You have the whole thing.
I've got a whole list. I have I got a list that's named Olayinka.
Oh wow! All right, so share all of that.
So y'all can find at RUKUSLIVE. If you're on Apple Music, I do make some of my playlists. I do make them public. So if you want to check that out,
that's good. So only on Apple Music.
Only on Apple. Yeah, I'm not really heavy on Spotify.
Okay.
Yeah,
but that's good to know.
We'll start that. Yeah.
You probably should.
So if you want to follow my playlist, you can do it. Now my music is on all platforms.
Right.
So if you want to check me out, you can check me out on all platforms.
With your music, what are you doing now?
So I've got a few things in the works. So I've like a lot of people used to be like, yo, when are you gonna rap again? When are you doing this? Rap, music. And I've started kind of stepping back from that.
From rapping?
Music. No, from being called a rapper.
Okay.
Which people are like, well, that's weird. But you rap.
What would you call yourself?
I'm a storyteller.
Okay.
So it doesn't matter the medium. It doesn't. I write fiction. I write poetry. I write songs.
Okay.
Rap is a form of expression, but even in my day-to-day job at my company, I'm creating narratives. I'm using stories to tell whatever it is, to sell whatever it is that I'm trying to do. And so I think that the people who really change this world on any level are the people who tell the best stories. You may not like their story, but the most compelling stories are the stories that shift, are the stories that shift things, are the stories that actually change things. They put people into power, they take people out of power. It's why one of the first things that people try to do when they get into a job as a dictator or a president or whatever is control the press, because that's who tends to create the narrative. So even Trump in this era, what he's been so masterful at doing is manipulating the media and changing that narrative, right?
Yeah, managing the story and selling it. So does that mean politics is somewhere in the vicinity at some point in the future?
I don't know what. I
mean, for telling stories, I'm like, interesting. Okay.
I don't know what's in the future in that respect, but what I do know is that when I boil it all down to storytelling, then it opens up an array of possibilities for me. So whether that is continuing to do music, whether that is writing a book, whether that is running for office at some point, or being the person behind, being a David Axelrod, and being the person who creates the narrative around what should the narrative be.
Absolutely.
Telling stories for a brand or a company. Like, I can do that.
Interesting.
I can do that.
Yeah. Rukus can do a lot of things around the stories. Brings me to your, I don't know what exactly to call it, but at some point this year, you had an event which sort of flows with a storytelling narrative.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit more about that? I kind of mentioned that a bit when I talked about the brown skin girl thing, because I think it flowed with that. What was the intent? What exactly was the event? And, what did you learn from it? Do you intend to do it again? Just tell us a little bit more about that.
So the event was called Queens of Color, and it was a Black female empowerment event. Now, there's a lot of these that go on, like, a lot of dudes may not know that, but there's probably one happening like damn near every day in this country, right?
Female empowerment.
There's a lot, but I don't feel like there's a lot that are being done by Black men, and so
I agree 110%, which is interesting.
I've had different conversations with Black women, and one of the kind of underlying themes that I observed is that they may not outright say it. Some people do, but for the most part, most Black women don't outright say it, but they don't feel supported and protected by Black men collectively. You may have a husband that you feel supported and protected by. You may have a brother, but collectively, when things go wrong on a public stage for Black women, they don't feel like Black men come to their aid the same way that Black women come to the aid when
I could see that.
Black men have issues.
But culturally, because going to our culture, being Nigerian, generally, are Black men protective of Black women? I mean, I'm not saying just father, daughter, mother. Are they actually protective of women? Right? Because we're going to our culture and just everything with relationships and
I think our culture is unfortunately patriarchal, and I think what comes with that is an automatic demeaning of women and an automatic devaluing of women.
Okay.
So to make it specific to the culture that I know, which is Nigerian culture, I know that although we may physically, step up to the plate if someone threatens, our women, on the day-to-day, are you protecting their minds?
Right.
Are you protecting their emotions? Are you protecting their opportunities? So protection is not.
Are you even aware that you are not?
And that's the thing. That's
something else.
Like, so people think of protection and they think physical, like brute force. But, what if your daughter wants to be, something different from outside the norm?
Right.
Are you willing to protect her dreams?
Yeah.
What if, your daughter wants to date somebody that's different from your expectations? Are you willing to protect that?
Yeah.
Protect her desires? So, there's just so many things that I think that we tend to not think about. And so one of the focuses of that particular event, the Queens of Color event, was a lot of men make a lot of comments about Black women's physical appearances, whether it's their hair, whether it's, kind of reinforcing colorism by preferring light skins or certain skin tones over others, and, body shaming, whether it's, it's somebody's weight or whether the proportions of their physique.
Right.
And so that was kind of the main focus. I have this song called Mirrors. And it's available on all platforms: Apple Music, Spotify.
I like that. I like that. No, that's good.
And on this song Mirrors, it features Omawumi.
Yeah.
And on the song, I talk about just some of those trials and tribulations that young Black and African girls go through with their features, from the width of their nose to the size of their hips, or their hair texture, or the skin color, and all of those things. And bleaching is very prominent across the continent. And that's not even just a Black culture thing. That it's around the world, whether it's India or China.
So the colorism thing is deeper than just Black.
So I wanted to have a conversation where Black women felt safe sharing their experiences, their concerns, and ideas on how to overcome some of that negative energy that a lot of us Black men are responsible for putting out there. And so that was my attempt to kind of counteract some of the stuff that we put out there. And, I just felt like I had to do something.
So was it mostly women, or was it sort of an open?
It was open to everybody, but it was mostly women. So I definitely had a lot more women turn up. There were a few guys there. There were maybe like 4 or 5 guys there, but I would say it was closer to like 50 to 60 women that showed up. I didn't expect anybody to show up, because I'm like, who am I? Like, who am I to throw up?
Talk about the women, let's empower you. Like, where is that? What that is? That's an interesting perspective.
And I was very careful. Like, I didn't want to be like, so here are your issues, and
let me make you stronger.
Like, no, it was like, I wanted to bring together women that I know that are extremely confident and extremely knowledgeable and able to articulate their experiences. I wanted to put them as the panel, and then I wanted to invite anybody, and then have these women that I know have overcome things, and I know some of the process that they've gone through, have them articulate some of that to people in the audience who might have experienced or be experiencing some of those same things. Just to have
the open conversation. Yeah. So given the turnout of that, is that something you intend to do again?
Well, everybody wants me to.
Yeah. You see, like, there's a huge interest.
There's a huge interest. I feel like, for me, I don't know if my gift is throwing events,
Well, that could be kind of like storytelling.
It is one way of telling a story. I like the idea of telling a story through song or through writing or through those things are more natural to me. And so even though hosting it, like I host events, quite frequently. So being an MC for an event is very different though from like organizing it and there's like the details of what brings everybody together, makes them feel comfortable, getting vendors in there, because we had different Black women-owned vendors that were there that were kind of showing off their products and stuff. So all of the thoughts, and it's something I want to do again, but it's something that I was like, whoa.
You weren't ready for the turnout.
I wasn't ready for the turnout, and if I did it again, I'm a very intentional person. I would want it to scale up somehow.
Okay.
I wouldn't want to just do the same thing that I did before.
Understood. That's pretty good. I remember hearing about it. I wasn't able to attend, but definitely I wasn't. I think we talked. Yeah. Well, we talked about it at some point. I was like, wait, when did? Yeah. Well, we can. Next time, whatever you're doing, definitely. And as we're about to wrap up, I try to give my guests an opportunity to ask me a question, or ask a question about Foshty or something. So
Foshty takeover.
And you still didn't rap about Foshty. We were supposed to find the instrumental. I mean, no pressure, but can we get something?
Okay.
Maybe should I try to find the instrumental for
anything?
Okay, just anything. It's fun, no pressure. Give you like
2 bars.
That's fine. I would say I'll take one, but one wouldn't really get the effect. So I'm trying to get an instrumental thing here.
Or maybe what do they do on these shows? Like you throw words and then maybe I put the words in.
That's the word.
Foshty.
Should I instrumental?
When I think about Foshty, I think about the elements that tell you who a boss be.
Woo! I like that.
You kind of like that. Yeah. No need for flossing. Foshty, we over here in Boston, on the game, off the chain, Ruck on the microphone, must be Hall of Fame. You
nice.
know exactly what I'm saying. You should throw a verse so I can finish the game. Throw a word. You're supposed to
throw a word. Oh, okay. I was like, wait, verse? You said
verbs. Verbs.
Oh, throw verbs. Oh.
So throw a word.
We are catchy.
Okay, we are catchy. I'm over here on the microphone moving like an Apache, just attacking with no backing. I could do this, my God leaves me never lacking.
We are rising.
We are rising on the air every day, everywhere like Verizon. I'm so surprising. No horizon could stop me from reaching my peak. Never weak,
Cause
never
we're Foshty.
And we're Foshty.
Had to give that in there.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, back in the day, that used to be how we did.
Yeah.
Throw the words and then just make
I don't even. Yeah. I'm not familiar with any of that.
Let me see. I need a question.
Yeah. Well, no pressure. If you can't come up with one, that's totally fine.
Don't try and dodge it.
You know, I'm fine not answering questions. So.
Okay. I got some questions. So.
Okay. Some. Okay.
Yeah. I told
like
you.
More than one.
Foshty takeover.
Let's do it.
Takeover. I'm your host, Rukus, and this segment is called the Foshty Takeover. This is where I ask your host, as you want to, I ask a couple of questions that kind of dive into what makes that mind tick. No, a couple like more, 2 or more.
I mean, we're like, okay, all right, let's try.
So, what made you say, I'm gonna start a podcast?
Oh, okay. What made me say I'm going to start a podcast? I actually didn't think of starting a podcast. The Foshty thing, this is going to sound very interesting, but we've had similar conversations, so it made sense. I woke up in the middle of the night at 3 o'clock and I couldn't get the phrase out of my head. This is just one of those things.
Yeah.
I was like, I woke up, it was like 3 a.m. and I kept thinking from our shithole countries, of course the Trump thing had happened.
Yeah.
And I like to toy around with ideas. I like to do things. I like to try things. I've written poetry before. I toy with the idea of writing stuff. But I like talking to people, and I like engaging with people on a deeper level. Just not I try not to do very surface interactions. So when the Foshty name came to my mind, I thought, okay, I like this. This is interesting. And I do like the concept because it was always sort of a way to twist the idea that, Trump's phrase, we don't want people from shithole countries. I'm thinking, well, most of where he's talking about would be where I come from.
Yeah.
And I know people that come from these places. Things that may not be that great, but I know we have a lot of value here.
Yeah.
But no one really talks about that. No one... we're not trying to talk to the president or whatever. Just for people, individuals. We're people that have come here that are doing things. I think you were born here. Were you born here?
I was born here.
Okay, so you're second generation and I'm first generation. And our children may end up being here and continuing their lives here, but we don't always tell the stories about our experiences. So I decided, how would I do this? At some point, I thought, okay, maybe we'll just have a website and we'll just kind of, share stories or something. And maybe that's what happens. But I thought, I like talking to people, but I tend to hate the camera and I hate being in public. So this is a way to challenge all of that. One, to talk about our stories. Two, to force me to actually engage with people, besides just kind of keeping to myself and my small circle of friends, and to get to share our stories on a personal level.
Yeah.
Right? Individual stories. I mean, making a podcast, put it out there. People will hear about our experiences here, people that are back home, people that are new to the country and trying to figure out how to do. Someone could one day say, you know what, I kind of want to rap, I kind of want to do this, but I don't know anyone that's done it. Like, oh, here, there's this guy, Rukus, that not only can I follow him on Instagram, but I actually know a little bit about his story.
Yeah.
So it makes it's kind of builds a deeper connection. That's my idea.
Okay.
That's the goal.
Wow, that is interesting.
It is?
That is
interesting.
interesting.
I mean, in my head it works out. I woke up and I thought, I like it. Yeah. I like it. I like it. I'm cool with it.
Okay, so let's segue from that into my second question, because you said something. You said that you're somebody who likes to try a lot of different things out. You like to kind of have your hands, experiment.
I enjoy activity.
You enjoy activity. So how has that, from a professional standpoint in your life, how has that manifested? I know you got multiple hustles, but how, for someone who has that similar kind of energy as you, how do you manage doing everything that you do? Well, first tell us, what are some of the things that you do?
Oh God, I hate talking about this. Well, now I have my day job where I work in supply chain management, and I do have a law practice.
Okay.
Very, very. So I have to explain that part because it is the birthing phase of a law practice. I am not trying to dive into it today, but I did create it so I can build it out into what I want. So there's a 5-10 year vision. It's just, okay, for me to get there, there's a transition process. So I'm in that beginning stage. I currently also have my real estate license because I do love real estate. I've from time flipped properties and kind of gotten my hands dirty in that. And I also think it's a fantastic way to build wealth as we build life here. Yeah. So I thought, you know what, I'll get the license so I can do stuff for myself and I can help out my friends and family when needed. And ultimately, I can sort of maybe build a brokerage where I can have a brokerage and a law practice when I'm 55. Who wants to keep working for somebody forever? Yeah. So those are all foundational things. But how am I able to do multiple things? I think so. The day I came across the word multi-potentialite or polymath was probably the best day of my life.
Because you were like, oh my God, this is me.
I was like, oh my God, we exist. There's a whole thing about, because as a kid, when you say, I want to do this, I want to do this, people think you're crazy. Like, what is wrong with you?
You raise a good point, because there's so many. I think the way America is set up is actually to shut that down.
Yes, no, you
Schools
can't.
are set up to shut that down.
You can't be
specialize in one thing.
You have to specialize, focus, and if you tend to be one that really can't, I literally cannot just do one thing. I like reading 3 books at the same time. It's really that. Yeah. I have one book. I have another based on the subject and my mood. I will decide on what book I want to read. I don't like just sitting on one book and that's it.
Yeah.
But you tell someone that, like, dude, why can't she just focus? And they begin to think something's wrong with you. Like, I can't. What is wrong? But then you discover, wait, there's a whole world of people like me. Like, it is kind of a superpower. Yeah. Like, it really is. So once I discovered that, I'm like, oh, great, I can do everything. Which I try not to do them all simultaneously, so I tend to compartmentalize and give myself phases.
Yeah.
Like Foshty, the idea came, I think the whole thing happened last year, so the idea actually came up last year. I decided that I wanted to trademark the word because I want t-shirts, I want little things that I want to do with it, and I don't know what's going to happen in the future, so why not? Law school, my legal background makes it easier for me to trademark my own stuff when I'm ready. So it helps balance all of that stuff. But when the idea comes, I like to explore things. So there was a point where I wanted to design purses, and I did. And someone was like, oh, are you going to be a designer? I'm like, I don't know. But I wanted to do it, so I did it because I'd like to follow through.
Can I touch on something you said? You brought that up. That just raised something in my mind. What I think it's an important question to ask. Why is it because you do something and that you are, and that it must be monetized to the extreme? Like, don't get me wrong, I like money too, but not everything has to turn into $1 billion business. Yes. Like, it could just be like, I like making purses.
Right. Or it could be the joy in the creation. I've tried to explain to someone like sometimes it's almost like birthing things. I like whenever I die to say, you know what, I created things and there are things that will be left over. I wrote some ebook books at some point, which I think
I've got one.
And I did that based on a certain time frame in my life. I was pregnant. I was a little depressed. I was on bed rest, and I was like, you know what, I want to create something. The creation was the important part. Yeah. And a few times, like, you're not selling, you're not marketing. I was like, I hate marketing. Like, it just makes me uncomfortable because I feel like I'm forcing you to do something. But I like the creation of things. I like the creation of stuff. And when I die, it'll be like, oh, wow, you left something. Yeah. You did something here and left an impact on someone, or legacy, left a tangible thing that someone can look at and say, you know what, during her time here, something was left.
Yeah. And I think sometimes in life, like, if it's that organic and that kind of altruistic of like, I'm just doing this.
I just want to do it.
A lot of times things take care of themselves and the synergies that should occur happen. So sometimes if it is something that is meant to take off and is meant to be profitable, right, it will find a way to be that. Eventually, it doesn't have to be like stress and you must die on this hill. Like,
totally agree. Yeah. But I think a lot, and I had another guest that we spoke about this, and really with our culture, and I think the experiences of our parents, maybe everything was at some point, for some people, for most people, about survival. Yeah. It was about, what do I do and how do I survive? Yeah. And we're in a space now where some of us have kind of, that are here, I mean, I'm sure not everybody, but some of us have passed the I need to survive phase. It now becomes, I want to flourish. And, you know, I can do things, and if money comes, it comes, but I have the education, I can always work or sell a house. Like, I can always sustain my life, but I do want to create things that sort of just exist.
And that goes back to, I mean, the root of that then goes to, like, what makes me feel happy and fulfilled. Wow. Like, maybe, surviving is nice, but then, okay, now that I am surviving and I feel comfortable that I will survive, how am I happy and fulfilled?
Where is the joy?
Yeah. And if it's just money, and if making money makes you happy, by all means, go for it. I know some people like that, where the actual thrill of making money is what gets. But I know way more people who that's not the thrill for them. No. They think that's the thrill. They like the idea of making money, but then you wake up one day and you've got money, and the way you got it, and everything you went through, and the things that you could have been doing that would have made you fulfilled and happy, you're not doing them.
And you're just unhappy. You're just unhappy with the because the money. It's I think a lot of people, we like what the money can get for us. The freedom that money can buy. So money is it's absolutely important. But I also think the joy of the process is very personally. It's very important that I live a life that I absolutely enjoyed. Yeah. And for me, if enjoyment means creating stuff and coming up with a podcast, and at some point in my life, I mean, in 20 years, I'll be like, oh, I remember that one time. Yeah. You know, remember that time we did that podcast? Maybe no one would ever see it. Maybe no one ever sees this. But it was like, dude, we did that. Yeah. Remember that time we did that? Yeah. And it would just be a conversation. And it would be something that we have done, and it exists somewhere. Yeah. You know, maybe your kids and my kids are like, oh gosh, they did that like 40 years ago. Who knows?
There's nothing more inspiring to me than, like, you know, and I'm not trying to get esoteric or anything here, but like when you think about, like, we're sitting here, and it's like somebody thought of this chair. Right. Like, somebody was like, it started with, I need that survival. I need a place, like, my back, I need a place to sit. And then we've developed so much that it turned into, I want to make something that's beautiful to sit on. Yeah. and
not just a chair, not just a functional chair, but now something that is beyond that, beyond just serving its purpose. We have now beautified it, and we're trying to make it more. There's a phrase that I've been in a space where I've been listening to some interesting things lately, and there's this phrase that's been sticking in my head: thoughts become things. Thoughts become things. So the idea is to force you to be very conscious of the thoughts you're having.
Yes.
Because every single thought becomes a thing eventually, even if that thing is just your emotion. So your thoughts are driving multiple things all the time. So the ability to get to control your thoughts is something that we don't actually think about. We don't think about our thoughts, right? We assume our thoughts just happen. We don't think about, no, I can choose to think about this. I can choose to have a positive thought about whatever A, B, and C is. But I think we're probably gonna have to do a different podcast.
Oh yeah. Sorry, there's a time limit on this. I'm your host, your new host.
Rukus. Rukus and Foshty, but it's still my baby. Rukus is just going to manage it for a while. Thank you for your time.
No problem.
I absolutely appreciate you taking the time to come talk to me.
Of course, yeah.
This is great. To the rest of you out there, thank you for watching.
Oh, wait. One more thing.
We're not done.
My Instagram handle is RUKUSLIVE. So Rukus Live. No C in Rukus, just Rukus Live. Yeah. So check me out. Check out the music. Usually tells you what I'm doing. I'm on Facebook. I'm on YouTube. Everything is with that handle, Rukus Live. So check me out.
Awesome. You're so good at this.
Thanks.
Yeah, because I totally forgot. So yeah, Rukus Live. And
what about your own handle now?
I don't market. I'm not being
just download the podcast.
Foshty,
watch the podcast.
Yeah, so there's Foshty. I feel like it's a illegal Foshty. We'll stick with Foshty.
Oh yeah, polymath.
I'm a polymath. It is a whole world
There's
out
too
there.
many handles to give.
But this is funny. I just have to say this because I was on someone recently, my friend. So we're being funny, and I just had to tell this story because it's stuck in my head. And she said something about marketing, like you have to learn to market. I was like, market? No. I mean, if you're a brand, you don't market. She thought it was the funniest thing. I'm like, I was like, what's the market? Anyway, thank you for watching, and until next time, this is Foshty Conversation.